Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are stripping the paint off the walls. I want you to set aside everything you think you know about religious texts, specifically the Quran.
Everything.
Put away the image of the chanting mystic, the private rituals, the prayer beads, all of it.
It's a hard reset today.
Oh,
We're going completely back to basics, but from an angle that I think most people have likely never even considered.
it really is. I want you to imagine instead that we are sitting in front of a terminal screen. We are looking at code.
Source code.
Exactly, source code for a massive, complex operating system designed to run a civilization from the ground up.
That is the entire premise of the systems-level synthesis we are looking at today. It's based heavily on the reinterpretations by G.A. Parwes. And the core argument is, well, it's fascinatingly blunt.
How so?
It says we have been reading the manual wrong for centuries. We've been treating a technical blueprint for a state as if it were, I don't know, a collection of hymns.
And when you treat a blueprint like a hymn, you miss the instructions on how to build the building. You might appreciate the poetry of the architecture, but you end up sleeping in the rain because you never actually built the roof.
You get the melody, but you don't get the structure. That's a perfect way to put it. This synthesis argues that words we think we know, words like iman, salah, infaqar, are actually technical terms.
Command lines.
Right. They're technical terms in a socio-political constitution. And if you translate them as faith or prayer, you are essentially introducing bugs into the software. You're misinterpreting the very commands that make it run.
So our mission today is to debug this code. We're going to unpack 4 of these specific terms that this source material redefines, just to see how they fit together.
And it is a system. That's the key. They have to fit together.
Right. And I have to warn you, the listener, this is going to sound radical. It challenges, and in some cases completely invalidates, the religious understanding most people have.
But we are here to debate theology. That's not the point of this deep dive.
No. We aren't here to say this is true Islam or that is false Islam. We are here to treat this specific source material as our ground truth for the next hour. We want to see if this civilizational operating system actually, compiles. Does it run?
That's the right question. We're looking for internal consistency. Does this worldview hold together as a system of governance, of economics? Because if the premise is that this text is a guidance for humanity, then logically it should provide a system that actually works for humanity.
In a tangible way.
In a real, measurable way. It shouldn't just be about vague spiritual feelings or, comfort in the afterlife. It should build a better life here.
Right. Okay, so let's boot up this operating system. We have to start with the first line of code, the user login, essentially.
Iman.
Now, the standard translation is faith. In the West, and honestly in most religious contexts I can think of, faith is almost defined by the lack of evidence.
Right.
It's believing in the dark. It's the leap of faith. You close your eyes, you let go, and you just hope someone catches you.
That is the classic dichotomy. Faith versus reason. The idea that they are enemies, or at least that they operate in separate spheres. You have science over here, which is rational, observable, testable.
The hard stuff.
The hard stuff. And then you have religion over there, which is faith-based, emotional, mystical. The source material we have today just screams error at that definition.
A fatal error.
A fatal error. It argues that Iman has absolutely nothing to do with blind belief. In fact, it argues that blind acceptance, or following tradition without question, is one of the biggest bugs you can introduce.
So if Iman isn't, I believe because I was told to, or, I believe because my parents believed, what is it?
The source defines Iman as rational conviction.
Rational conviction. Let's unpack that.
It links the word etymologically to which means safety, security, peace of mind, and connects it directly to the Quranic usage of words like aql, which is intellect, and fikr, which is critical reflection, deep thinking. The argument is this. You cannot trust a system you haven't audited. You cannot feel safe or have in a vehicle if you have no idea who built it or how it works. Amens is described here as the end state of reason.
The end state of reason. I love that phrase, but let's drill into it. That implies a process. You don't start with Iman, you end with it.
Precisely. It's the destination, not the starting point. Think of it like a scientist in a physical law, let's say aerodynamics.
Okay.
A physicist doesn't have faith in the laws of lift and drag in a mystical sense. She doesn't light a candle and hope the plane flies.
Right, that would be concerning.
Very.
Right,
she has conviction that the plane will fly. Why? Because she has observed the data, she has tested the formulas, she's run the wind tunnel simulations, and she has seen the results again and again. She has Eamon in the laws of physics.
So her belief is actually just knowledge that has solidified into certainty. It's gone from hypothesis to theory to law in her own mind.
Correct. The source argues that the Quran demands this same level of intellectual certainty regarding what it calls the moral laws or the societal laws. It's saying, look at the universe, look at the rise and fall of nations, look at human psychology, use your brain.
Don't just take my word for it.
Exactly. Audit the code, run the numbers. And the claim is, if you do that honestly and rigorously, you will inevitably arrive at the conclusion that this operating system is the best way, perhaps the only way, to run humanity successfully.
So it's a conclusion, not an assumption.
Yes. The source suggests that Iwan is when you have analyzed the human condition so thoroughly that you come to the unavoidable conclusion that this specific operating system yields the desired output, which is peace and justice. It's not a feeling, it's a verdict.
A verdict. But here's the problem with being the first person to reach that verdict. The source notes talk about the pioneers, the al-Sabiqun.
Yes.
If you are the first person to download this new OS or the first person to realize, hey, the old system is broken, you look crazy to everyone else.
You do. It's the visionary's dilemma. The source describes these early adopters not as mystics or people who heard voices, but as ulu albab,
Which means?
possessors of high intellect, people of deep insight, but to the status quo. To the people who are comfortable in the old corrupt system, they look like madmen, they look like zealots.
It reminds me of the early days of germ theory. You had Ignaz Semmelweis telling all these esteemed doctors to wash their hands because of invisible creatures that were killing patients.
That's a perfect parallel.
He had rational conviction based on data. He saw the mortality rates in the maternity ward plummet when he made people wash their hands. But to everyone else, he was hallucinating.
I can't see the germs, so you must be crazy.
Right. You're telling me to change my entire way of life based on something I can't even perceive?
Exactly. Semmelweis saw the cause and effect before the mechanism, the germ, was visible to the naked eye. The source argues that the al-Sabiqun understand the laws of history, what the text calls sunnatullah, so well that they can see the collapse of a tyrannical society while it still looks powerful.
They see the rot in the foundation before the cracks appear on the wall.
Precisely. They aren't guessing. They aren't hoping. They are projecting a trajectory based on what they understand to be immutable social laws.
So Eamon here is actually superior foresight. It's the entrepreneur who sees the smartphone revolution in 1990. Everyone else sees a brick phone. They see a pocket computer.
Exactly. And because they see it, they are willing to work for it. They're willing to sacrifice for it. To the outsider, that sacrifice looks completely irrational.
Why are you investing all your money in this garage startup? It's just a bunch of wires.
But to the person with Eamon, the result is already real in their mind. They are just waiting for the rendering to finish, for physical reality to catch up with their intellectual conclusion.
So Eamon is the software download. You've verified the code, you trust the developer, and you've agreed to install it. But then you hit the next term. And this is usually where the science analogy breaks down for people.
Al-Heb.
Right? Al-Heb, the unseen. Usually this is where we bring in the ghosts, the angels, the jinn, the spirits, the stuff that goes bump in the night, the metaphysical realm.
The spooky stuff.
But I was reading through the notes, and the source material takes a hard left turn here. It says, stop thinking about magic. Think about time.
It demystifies the concept entirely. It yanks it out of the supernatural and plants it firmly in the natural. In this system's view, Al-Heb doesn't mean a spooky, invisible world. It refers to the future consequences of the law.
Future consequence.
Events that are currently unobservable simply because they haven't happened yet.
But they are inevitable.
If the law is true, yes.
Mm-hmm.
The source uses this astronomer versus fortune teller distinction, which I think clarifies this beautifully.
Walk us through that, because I think people often conflate prediction with prophecy.
Okay, so imagine an astronomer, a physicist. He looks at his charts, he does the math, he calculates the orbital mechanics, and he says there will be a total solar eclipse in exactly 45 years, 3 months, and 2 days, visible from this specific location on Earth. Now, can you see that eclipse right now?
No, it's 45 years away.
So technically, that eclipse is gaping. It is unseen. But does the astronomer believe in it? Does he have Eamon in its eventual occurrence?
Yes, absolutely. 100% conviction.
But why? Is he guessing? Is he listening to a spirit guide? Did he have a dream about it?
No, of course not. He trusts the laws of planetary motion. He trusts gravity. He knows that if the system continues to run as it always has, that result is locked in. It's a certainty.
Exactly. He isn't guessing, he is calculating. Now compare that to a fortune teller. A fortune teller looks at your palm or reads tea leaves and says, "You're going to meet a tall, dark stranger next Tuesday."
Or you'll come into money soon. Very vague.
Right? And the source explicitly rejects the fortune teller. It calls that superstition. It calls it a lie. And the reason is fascinating. It's because the human system has variables, free will. The source uses this great image of a fly on a table.
The fly, I loved this detail. It's so simple.
It's so visual. Imagine a room full of Nobel Prize physicists. They can calculate the orbit of Mars to the nanometer. They can tell you where a comet will be in 1,000 years. But there's a fly buzzing around the table.
Okay.
Can they calculate where that fly will land in 5 seconds?
No, no way.
But why not? The fly is physical matter. It obeys the laws of physics. It's not magic.
Because the fly has volition. It has a will. It can choose to land on the coffee cup or the notebook or the physicist's nose. It's unpredictable.
And humans are infinitely more complex than a fly. We have free will. So the system cannot predict your individual destiny. That's why horoscopes are considered nonsense in this framework. They deny your agency. They treat you like a rock, not a human.
But wait, if you can't predict the individual, how can you have conviction in the future?
Because while the system cannot predict an individual's action, it can predict macro-level consequences.
Consequences of laws.
Right. If any human drinks a gallon of poison, they will die. That is biological law. It doesn't matter who the human is or what they choose to do next second. The outcome of that act is set.
Okay.
So if a society drinks poison, if it engages in tyranny, exploitation, or systemic injustice, it will collapse. That is a sociological law, according to the source, trusting that justice leads to peace even when you're currently in the middle of a war. That is human bookkeeping.
So it's trust in the unseen outcome of a present action
Yes.
based on an observable law.
Exactly. It's not about seeing ghosts. It's about seeing the harvest.
Which brings us to the farmer.
The farmer.
The metaphor that really made this click for me, it's so grounded, it takes all the, the woo-hoo out of it.
The agricultural metaphor is central to this entire synthesis. Think about the act of farming, especially in an ancient context. You take
Wow.
your wealth, your grain, your seeds. This is the stuff that keeps you and your family alive today.
It's your entire net worth, basically.
It is. And what do you do with it?
You throw it in the dirt, you bury it.
To a person who doesn't understand the law of growth, the biological laws of germination, that looks like complete madness. It looks like loss.
Why are you throwing away your lunch? Why are you burying your wealth where you can't see it?
It's gone. It's gaib. It's unseen. But the farmer has trust in the unseen. He has eman bilkaib. He knows the chemistry of the soil. He knows the cycle of the seasons. He trusts that this temporary loss is actually an investment.
An investment that will return 100-fold, 700-fold.
Right. The harvest is the gabe. He acts today for a result he can't see yet, but which he knows is coming. The source argues that this is precisely what the civilizational OS requires of its citizens.
So translating that to society, what does that look like?
It means you have to follow the moral law. Maybe that means sacrificing your short-term profit for ethical business practices. Maybe it means standing up to a tyrant, which risks your personal safety. Maybe it means giving away your surplus wealth when everyone else is hoarding.
And to the materialist who only sees today, you are losing. You are being stupid. Look at that fool giving his money away.
Look at that activist getting arrested for nothing. But the believer trusts that the crop of a just and peaceful society will eventually grow, even if they don't see it sprouting immediately.
It's risk assessment based on what are presented as guaranteed laws. It's delayed gratification on a civilizational scale.
Correct. It turns the believer into a long-term, high-conviction investor in their own society.
Okay, so this is huge. We have the conviction. We've verified the software. And we have the long-term vision. Cabe, we know what the output is supposed to be. Now we need the hardware. We need to actually run the program.
And this brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most controversial redefinition in the entire stack, Salah.
This is the pivot point, isn't it? This is where people usually get off the bus if they aren't willing to rethink their definitions.
It really is. Because if you ask 1 billion people today what Salah is, they will say prayer. Specifically, the ritual.
Standing, bowing, prostrating, facing Mecca 5 times a day.
That is the image. And the source says that's not it.
Not it at all, or just part of it.
It says that is insufficient. Or rather, that we have confused the training drill for the actual mission. The source digs into the etymology of Salah, and it's surprisingly physical. It has nothing to do with supplication initially. It comes from the root describing a horse race.
The Musali. This is such a cool image. I'd never heard this before.
It's powerful. In ancient Arabia, they had specific names for horses based on their position in a race. The horse that won the race, the one out in front, was called the Sabiqs, the foremost,
Like the Al-Sabiqun, the pioneers we mentioned.
the very same route.
Whoa.
But the horse that ran second, the one right on its heels, its head literally touching the flank of the winner, following every move perfectly. That horse was called the Muzali.
So Sala implies following closely.
Following without a gap, following without friction, moving in perfect sync. If the leader turns left, the Muzali turns left instantly. There's no daylight between them. So the source argues that Sala literally means a society that follows the divine law neck and neck.
It's about adherence. Total systemic adherence.
Exactly. So it's not about me standing on a rug in my room and reciting words. It's about a collective motion, a whole society moving in perfect sync with a set of principles.
Okay, but here is the kicker. This is where it gets really political. The source links Salah directly to a phrase, tamkin fil ard.
Which means political power or statehood. Establishment on the earth.
Statehood. This is where it moves from religion to political science. It's unavoidable.
The source argues you cannot establish Salah, Ikmat as-Salah, alone in your bedroom. It is structurally, physically impossible. It poses the question you mentioned. If I pray 5 times a day, alone or in a group, have I established Salah? And the answer provided is an emphatic, unambiguous no.
That is a massive claim. That basically says the personal piety of millions, maybe billions of people is what? Useless, a waste of time.
Within the logic of this system's view, it's not useless, but it's not Salah. It's a drill. The source compares the ritual prayers to a military parade or a morning briefing. It's practice.
The drill versus the battle.
Precisely. Think of an army. Every morning they gather on the parade ground. They march in formation. Left, right, left, right. They salute the flag. They check their equipment. Why do they do that?
To instill discipline, to remember the chain of command, to build unit cohesion, to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Right. But if you do the drill perfectly, your boots are shiny, your march is flawless, and then you go to the actual battlefield and run away at the first sign of trouble. Were you a good soldier?
No, you were just a good dancer. You failed the mission completely.
Exactly. The ritual is the briefing. It's the refresher course. It's the reminder of the principles. The actual salah is what happens when you leave the mosque. It's how you run your business. It's how the courts adjudicate justice. It's how the government manages the treasury.
So if the society is corrupt, the salah has not been established, no matter how full the mosques are.
That's the core argument. It doesn't matter how many people are marching on the parade ground if the army is losing the war.
The source uses a really pragmatic litmus test here. It's almost scientific. It quotes the verse, "Indeed, Salah prevents indecency, fasha, and wrongdoing, munkar. It treats it like an equation."
A cause and effect relationship. Salah. Output. A society free from corruption and indecency.
And the observation is brutal. Look at the modern world. Look at many parts of the Muslim world specifically. We have more people praying than ever before. Mosques are overflowing. But do we have less corruption? Do we have less bribery, less exploitation? Are the courts just?
In many, many cases, the answer is a clear no. The societies are rife with those very things.
So the diagnosis is simple. If the medicine, the ritual, isn't curing the disease, corruption, then what you are taking is not the medicine prescribed in the manual.
You're worshiping the prescription bottle, but you aren't swallowing the pill. The pill is the system of adherence. It's the functioning state machinery.
This really reframes the story of Moses, too. The Mosaic example mentioned in the notes. I've heard the story of Moses 1,000 times, but never through this lens.
It's a great anchor for the concept. Why was Moses sent to Pharaoh? Think about it. Was it a theological debate? Did Moses just want Pharaoh to change his chanting style or believe in one God instead of many?
No, the demand was very specific. Let my people go.
It was a political demand. He went there to topple a system of slavery and economic exploitation. He went to replace the operating system of tyranny with the operating system of justice. That was the establishment of Salah.
It was a revolution, not a prayer meeting.
Exactly. He was setting up a new administration where the law was supreme, not the whims of a king. That is, Iqamat Salah.
So Salah is the mechanism of government. It's the functioning rule of law based on these divine principles.
Yes, and if Salah is this unified state-level adherence to a single law, a single constitution, then the biggest threat to the system isn't atheism. It's not external enemies. It's
fragmentation.
Sectarianism.
Mm-hmm.
The source is incredibly harsh on this. It identifies sectarianism as the blue screen of death for this OS. It causes a total system crash.
And it actually equates sex with shirk, with polytheism. That's a heavy charge. Usually shirk means worshiping an idol or bowing to a statue of Zeus or something.
But follow the political logic. If God is the sovereign, the ultimate lawgiver, then one God means one law.
Unitary sovereignty.
Right. If you have a state, it can only function with one constitution.
Yeah.
One central authority. One Supreme Court whose decisions are final. If you split the community, the Ummah, into sects, Sunni, Shia, Salafi, Sufi, school, that school, what have you actually done in political terms?
You've created political factions with different loyalties.
You have created competing centers of authority. You've created competing sets of laws. One group says this is legal, another says it's forbidden. In a political sense, you've created multiple gods. You are following the imam of this sect or the scholar of that sect rather than the unified divine law.
So you've split the sovereignty of the law itself.
And a state cannot function with two constitutions. You can't have a nation where half the people follow one Supreme Court and the other half follow a different one. It's chaos. It's civil war waiting to happen. The source argues that shirk, in this sociopolitical context, is structural anarchy. It crashes the system because the command is no longer unified.
The visual they use is pretty funny, but also deadly accurate. Imagine a congregation trying to follow two different imams in a mosque, each pointing in a different direction.
It would be comedy if it weren't so tragic in reality. You'd have people bowing while others are standing. You'd have collisions. It's a non-starter. The source argues that a civilizational OS requires absolute unity of command. You cannot have a functioning state if the citizens are loyal to factions rather than to the whole.
Wow, that is a heavy reinterpretation. It takes the most theological concept, monotheism, and turns it into a political science concept, the unitary state.
And this unitary sovereignty isn't just about control for its own sake. It's about the purpose of the state. Why do we need this unity? Why do we need this power? It's not just to have power. It's to execute the next part of the code.
The economic engine.
Exactly. Infaq.
Section 5, infaq, the economic engine. Now, usually this is translated as charity or spending, but again, we are going deeper. If Salah is the political machinery, infaq is the economic circulation it's designed to manage.
We are. The word infaq comes from the root nafaq, which means
A tunnel. Okay, like a highway tunnel.
think about a tunnel. What defines it? What is its primary characteristic?
It's open at both ends. Traffic enters, and traffic has to exit.
What if it's blocked at one end?
Then it's not a tunnel, it's a cave.
Exactly. And a cave is where things go to stagnate, to get trapped. The source argues that infaq implies an economy that is structured like a tunnel. Wealth must enter and wealth must exit. It must be in constant circulation.
So hoarding is structurally forbidden.
Hoarding is the blockage of the tunnel. It turns the economy into a cave. And when the flow of capital stops, the society dies. The operating system demands that resources circulate continuously for public welfare.
But here's the radical part. It's not just give some to the poor. It's not just a 2.5% tax. The source brings up the concept of al-af. And this is where I think the modern listener, especially the capitalist listener, or honestly anyone trying to save for a house or retirement, is going to choke on their coffee.
It is the most radical economic directive in the text, bar none. The Quran asks the question, and they ask you how much they should spend. And the answer it gives is one word, al-af.
Which the source defines as
Everything beyond immediate need. The surplus, all of it.
everything. Not 10%, not 20%, the entire surplus.
Everything. You keep what you need to function, your tools for your job, your food for the day or the season, your basic shelter, and the rest goes back into the system, into the central treasury.
Okay, play devil's advocate with me here. Why would anyone do that? If I work hard, why should I give away my surplus? What about my retirement? What about a rainy day? What if I get sick? What if my car breaks down? This sounds like a recipe for total personal insecurity.
And that is exactly the fear that the old operating system, the capitalist or feudal system, runs on. Why do we hoard? Why do we stack money in bank accounts and investment funds?
For security.
It's fear. We are afraid. We don't trust the future. We don't trust that society will catch us if we fall. So we build our own little private walls of money. We build our own little castles to protect us from the storm.
Right. I save for retirement because I don't know if the government will exist in 30 years or if Social Security will be bankrupt. I'm hedging my bets against systemic failure.
But in this proposed system, where Salah, the just state, is truly established, the state is the insurance. The system guarantees your pension. The system guarantees your health care. The system guarantees your safety and your children's education.
So the social contract is, I give my surplus to the state, infaq, and the state, sala, guarantees my future well-being, which is the unseen game.
Precisely. It's the farmer again. The farmer gives all his surplus seed to the earth. He doesn't keep a huge stash back just in case. Why? Because he trusts the laws of nature, the system, to return it tenfold. In this model, the citizen clears their account into the community, trusting that the community will sustain them.
It creates a society where no one is super rich, but no one is destitute. The tunnel is wide open and flowing for everyone.
It's a total social contract. It's not charity, which is often a top-down voluntary act of pity. This is a structural, mandatory, circular flow of wealth. But it requires that rational conviction that, Iman, we talked about at the very beginning.
It all connects back.
You have to believe the system works or you will never give up your surplus. If you don't trust the bank, you keep your money under the mattress. If you don't trust the state, so you won't practice infaq, you'll hoard.
The source also takes a swing at a very common religious phrase here. God provides.
Oh, this is a sharp critique. Often religious people, and especially wealthy religious people, will look at the poor and say, well, God is the provider. God will take care of them. It's God's will that they are poor. Who am I to interfere with God's will?
It's a way to absolve yourself of all responsibility. I don't need to help. God's got it.
The source calls this capitalist logic masquerading as theology. It argues that God does provide sustenance, but he provides it through the system that humans build. The operating system requires human execution.
God provides the rain and the soil and the sun, but we have to build the irrigation channels. If we block the channels with dams to enrich our own fields, we can't blame God for the drought downstream.
Precisely. If humans hoard, the system breaks and people starve. That isn't God withholding sustenance. That is humans breaking the tunnel. It puts the responsibility for poverty and wealth inequality squarely back on human shoulders.
So when you zoom out, there is a clear sequence here, a systemic sequence. It's not just a grab bag of cool-sounding terms. It's a process. It's a roadmap.
It's a linear timeline for building a state. Phase 1 is Iman, the design and development phase. This is where you, as an individual or a small group, intellectually accept that this operating system is the best way to run humanity. You study the blueprints, you get that rational conviction, you download the code.
You decide to commit to the install.
Phase 2 is Sala, the installation execution phase. You acquire the political power, the tamkin, to actually install this operating system. You set up the government, the courts, the enforcement mechanisms. You establish the system, you turn the machine on.
You boot it up, and you make sure there are no competing operating systems running, no sectarianism.
No viruses, no malware. And then comes phase 3, infaq. The performance phase, this is the output, this is the proof of concept. The system begins to circulate resources as designed. The tunnel opens, wealth flows, poverty is eliminated. This is the proof that the system is working.
Iman is the theory, Sala is the structure, infaq is the result.
Perfect summary. And running through all of this is that concept of parallelism. The source mentions that a society that achieves true Sala creates a human whose inner conviction and outer actions move in perfect parallel. There is no hypocrisy. You don't say you believe in justice and then run a corrupt business. Your internal software matches your external hardware.
Which brings us back to the madness of the pioneers. To get from phase 1, the idea, to phase 3, the result, that takes a lot of trust. You have to be willing to be the farmer burying the seed when everyone else is eating theirs and calling you a fool.
You do. And that's why the source emphasizes that this isn't for everyone initially. It can't be. It starts with the ulul albab, the people of intellect who can see the future consequences, the astronomers of sociology. But once the harvest comes in, once the infaq phase creates a society of abundance and justice, then the unseen becomes seen.
People see the results with their own eyes.
And then, as the source says, people enter the system in troops, in droves.
Yeah.
Because they don't need to man Bill Habe anymore. They have empirical evidence. They can just look around and say, oh, nobody's starving, crime is gone, the system works.
You know, what strikes me most about this entire deep dive is just how pragmatic it is. It's so grounded. We usually keep religion in this box of personal comfort or spiritual peace. But this civilizational operating system view is almost aggressive in its practicality.
It really is.
It's constantly asking, does it work? Does it stop corruption? Does it feed the poor? Does it create justice? If not, it's not religion. It's just a hobby.
So what for our listener? Whether you are religious or not, this framework challenges you to look at your beliefs, whatever they are, and ask, are these just internal comforts? Or are they a blueprint for a functioning society? The source material argues that a faith that doesn't result in a fair and just economic system is essentially a broken code. It's a simulation, not the real thing.
It takes the mysticism out and puts the responsibility in. It's a vision of a welfare state where every individual receives the full fruit of their labor, free from exploitation, but it requires everyone to buy into the code 100%, no exceptions.
And that brings us to the final image I want to leave everyone with. It's an image from the sources that sums this all up so beautifully.
The honeybee, Surah al, the chapter of the bee. I loved this image. It feels like the perfect capstone.
The source mentions that the Quran says that God revealed to the bee its path, that even the bee has its salah, its mission, and its tasbih, its effort. Think about a single honeybee. It travels miles to gather nectar. It works tirelessly from dawn till dusk.
A huge amount of effort for a tiny return each time.
A huge amount. But does it keep that nectar for itself? Does it find a little hole in a tree and make a private stash?
No, it brings it all back to the hive.
It brings every drop back to the collective. It keeps nothing for itself, trusting that the hive, the system, will sustain it. It follows its divine operating system perfectly. No bee tries to hoard nectar. No bee tries to become a tyrant over the others. They follow the law programmed into them.
And the result is honey, something useful, something sweet, something healing, a surplus that benefits the whole and even other species.
Exactly. And the provocative thought the source leaves us with is this. If a tiny insect can follow a divine operating system for the collective good, and in doing so create something as complex, beneficial, and beautiful as a hive, what would it look like if a complex human society actually did the same? What kind of honey could we produce if we stopped hoarding, stopped fighting over sex, and actually ran the code?
That is a massive question, and one worth chewing on. A huge thank you for guiding us through this dense, fascinating reinterpretation.
My pleasure. It's a lot to process, but I think it's definitely worth the effort.
And thank you to you, the learner, for diving deep with us. We'll catch you on the next deep dive. Keep thinking.